Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by EO Nashville, eonashville.com. If you're interested, it's by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs. We talk about the hard things that we do, making decisions, how we come about those decisions, and what the outcomes look like after the decision is made. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Good to be here again with you, Eric.
Good to be together again. Yeah. Had a little break there.
We had a little break. In fact, I did the last 3 episodes without you, and I really missed you. You forget about how much you lean on the other person, and not having you here was it made me grow a little bit. But unfortunately, we missed you for a sad reason.
Yep. Yeah.
And Eric and I had a little dialogue before we started this. We happened to have someone that didn't show up for the episode we were about to record. And we frantically tried to fill the space with someone else. And is this a sign that we're supposed to have this conversation?
I thought about that. When you first asked me, do you want to talk about this? I thought, I don't know. But then I realized everybody's going to deal with it. And so why not tell my story and, share what I've learned, and hopefully it'll help somebody else. And I'm going to be able, I didn't bring any Kleenex. I thought about it, but I'm not going to need it. Yeah.
Yeah. This subject is about death.
Yep. Spoiler alert. Everybody dies. Nobody gets out of this world alive. Not us, not our parents, not our kids. Everybody eventually dies. And what's that phrase? Carpe diem, seize the day, or there's another one. I can't remember the guy's name who talks about that fact. And if you recognize that eventually you're going to die, and you have to think about that, maybe even think about it every day, and that sharpens your focus, makes you realize, hey, this may be my last day. I should probably do something that matters.
This was a very short journey that I got to witness from a friend's perspective. Mm-hmm. So Eric and I are in a Marco Polo group with a couple of other really close friends. And over the last year or so, we are sharing our moments of our lives, like the challenges, the obstacles, the wins, the frustrations, And it's really been very valuable to me. And, I'll tell this to anyone. Many, many years ago, probably 6 years ago, I talked to everyone about Marco Polo and how powerful it was for me running my business. But really, at the end of the day, the reason for the app is to have deep, meaningful conversations with someone's video in their face. Their personal messaging with face-to-face communication is by far the most important thing in our lives. The best way to communicate with anyone is to be in their face, talking to them in person, but we cannot always be in person. And we maintain this really strong bond in this Marco Polo group. And during the, I guess it was maybe 3 weeks or so, you saw something that happened while you were visiting your dad. Mm-hmm. And you verbalized this thought that, no, this is it. This is the time. Can you take us back to that moment, that Sunday?
Yeah. My dad had some surgery a couple of years ago and almost died. And fortunately, after he got out of ICU and went through rehab, he got to go home. And my niece, my brother's youngest daughter, lived with him and took care of him. But he was able to get around. He could walk around and could do things. He even mowed the yard. He even started to drive again. My brother actually caught him out driving one day, and they stopped at a four-way stop and looked at each other. So he was functional, right? But I knew there was only a certain amount of time left. And this, he had a fall on Christmas Day, and I realized over the weeks after that, that the end was coming. And this particular Sunday, I went to his house, as I did for 2 years. Every Sunday I would go, and I just realized he was not really saying much. He wasn't feeling well, and he would, kind of lean over on his elbows and just wasn't saying a whole lot. I had put off for a long time doing something that I learned at a retreat that I went to, and that is that everybody ought to hear from the people that are important in their lives what you really think of them. And I think it's especially important if you're a child, which we all are, if your parents are still around, to actually write a letter to your parents and tell them what they have meant to you and how they have molded you and gotten you to where you are in life. And I put that off for a while. It's easy to do. There's always another day for that, right? Until there's not. And so that morning, this was Monday morning, I wrote a letter to my dad and went out to put it in the mailbox. And it was just eating at me, the image of him not being the same anymore. And I texted Ginger, my friend and now business partner, Ginger Jones, and told her what was going on. And she said, "Eric, drop everything and go out there." So I ran to the mailbox, pulled the letter out of the mailbox, and drove immediately to his house and spent the rest of the afternoon with him. And I actually opened that letter and I read it to him. Asked him to, helped him get over to the couch, and we sat on the couch and held his hand, and I read that letter to him. And man, you talk about powerful stuff. I intended for my niece to see that letter and get it and read it to him. But for me to be able to do that was one of the most powerful moments in my life. That morning, I've been going to EMP. This May will be my third year at EMP. And if you EOers out there have not done EMP, it is amazing at so many levels. We have a learning group. We meet every Monday morning at 8:30, and we talk about the 5%. We talk about things that we're learning. It has been an extremely impactful part of my life for the last year. And Ankit Patel, who's in the Atlanta chapter, runs that. Thank you, Ankit. We were talking about what I was experiencing. And one of the members of that group told me that something that she had done was to take a picture of herself with her father. She said, your dad may not be in the best possible health. He may not look great, but you'll never regret having that picture of the two of you together. Man, she was right. I'm thankful to have that. And I really love the live photo feature on the iPhone. And so I can look at the still version and I can hold it down and actually see it move. And so that we sat on the couch for probably 4 or 5 hours just talking, you know. And over the 2 years that I would go out there, we would have conversations. Man, they got a lot deeper the last couple of weeks. So not long after that, a few days after that, I realized, you know, there were some things that I still needed to say. And I began to think about, I told him why, some of the things that I admired about my dad, I told him what those were. And I realized there were some things that I never picked up on. And they hit me all of a sudden. When he was no longer 100% present, I realized, oh my God, he had this superpower that I didn't realize. And that is something that most people today really have to work at. And that is being 100% present with the person they're in front of. He did it naturally. Leading up to the inevitable, I began to work on the obituary and the eulogy. I told my brother, I said, I can't sit at his funeral and let somebody else tell his story, because I'm not going to listen to a bunch of generalities about somebody that doesn't really know him. So I began the process of thinking about those things. And so in that second letter, I told him how much I admired his ability to be present with whoever was in front of him. And it hit me that I didn't really have that in the way that I should. I realized in the process of writing the obituary, you know, if you've ever read one, talks about the birth of this person, who their parents were, where they were born, what they did with their life. I knew my dad while I was alive, but I didn't really know that much about how he grew up or about the things that he did in childhood or early adulthood. The reason is not because I didn't ask or didn't care. He never talked about it. He didn't need to. He didn't feel the need to talk about himself or to bring up the past. He was always concerned with whatever and whoever was in front of him at that moment. He didn't worry about the past. He didn't fret about it. He didn't think about past decisions or actions that he took. And maybe he did privately. He never told us about it. He did, and I mentioned this in the obituary, he did say that he was thankful for air conditioning because he grew up was born in Gaffney, South Carolina in 1938. So you think, you know, electricity was a luxury. Air conditioning didn't exist. He, you know, worked, picked cotton, did whatever his father told him to do. You worked all the time. That was life. So he didn't talk much about what that looked like. And I realized that was because whenever I was with him, it was whoever or whatever he happened to be working on in that very moment. And he didn't worry about the future. He would help me worry about mine. He would help me get prepared. He would, you know, ask me, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do next? But he didn't go really beyond that. And so that really moved me. And so I sent that letter. I mailed it this time, and I told my niece, you're going to get this letter in the mail. And she got it and read it to him. And a few days later, she texted me and said, hey, there's a letter here for you. And I thought, well, gosh, that's weird. I haven't lived at that address in 35 years. You know, why would there be a letter there waiting for me? And so she said, when you're here to watch the Super Bowl, you know, be sure and grab the letter. Of course, I forgot. my brother and sister and my mom came out, and it was the Jackson Five were back together again to watch the Super Bowl. And I forgot to get the letter. And I got a call from him the next day. I was at the shop getting my vehicle worked on, and he called me and told me, "Hey, I wanted to let you know that I love you, and I don't think I'm going to make it." He had that realization that, he wasn't going to be able to overcome this. And he was a tough guy, so he always thought he was going to win. And I forgot again, back to that letter that was waiting on me. I actually texted Kelly back and said, "Hey, can you shoot me a picture of that letter? I'll tell you if I want you to open it or not," because I didn't have a clue what it was. She said, "Well, it's just a folded up piece of paper." Okay, well, just shoot me a picture of it. And it was a letter that my dad had dictated to my niece, to me. And he told me some things that I wanted to hear. It prompted him to say some of the same things to me that he wanted me to hear. So it was a beautiful exchange. The last time I saw him, it was the same thing. It was, and fortunately one of my other nieces, as I was going in the bedroom to visit with him, she took a picture of me and my dad. It's the last picture I'll have with him. And we had probably talked for about an hour. I kind of knew that it was likely the last time I would see him. I had as luck would have it, had a trip planned to go to Wilmington, North Carolina, my wife and I and my daughter and son-in-law. And I told him, I said, "I'm canceling the trip. I'm going to stay here with you." He said, "No, you need to go be with them. I'll be fine." Even this is a few days after he had told me that he was not going to make it. And talked to my brother about it, and he said, "Yeah, it could be a week, and we don't know." So I was in Wilmington when he actually passed, but I was at peace with it. He was surrounded by family. We got to have those conversations and say the things that we needed to say. Yeah. And in the eulogy, I mentioned that I've seen it firsthand before. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, passed away, and there were probably some things left unsaid. And I told everybody that was there, I got lucky. Our family, we got really lucky because we could see it coming, and not everybody gets that. And so I know there are people listening to this that have somebody in their life that probably needs to hear some things from them, because you never know. You don't know when your last day is coming.
How did that shape you as a dad?
Oh, I told my daughter, I call her Caitlin, everybody else calls her Katie, that if she ever tells me that she wants to see me, the answer will be yes. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. Because I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And is that time with her and Drew and my wife less important than this podcast or, some coffee meeting or, those things are important too, but not nearly as important as the people that you love and care about. And I made a commitment to being there with them as often as I can be.
This letter that you wrote when you were in front of him and going over the letter, what was he like to look at?
Well, he was present. He probably couldn't believe it, I would guess, that it was happening.
Yeah.
He's always known I was very emotional, and gosh, I have to think. I know that he appreciated it. He told me as much, that he enjoyed me expressing those things to him that maybe I'd said in different ways in the past, but I said it very directly and with purpose and wrote it down so that he could see it and read it. And it's easy to just say things and not put them to paper where the other person can pull it back out later and read it. And I think that's why at this retreat that they suggested that you write a letter to your parents, because if you mail it to them and they get it in the mail, well, they have to open it. It's a surprise. Well, this is from my son or daughter, and they get it, and it's something they can read, and it hits them because there's nobody else around. I got to do both. I got to do it in front of him. He had a glassy look in his eyes.
Yeah. What a beautiful story, and how lucky you are.
Yeah.
My dad lost his dad when he was a senior in high school, and Dad's been struggling for the last couple of years and started to see a therapist, and one of the outcomes was for him to write a letter to his dad and just to have it.
Yeah.
And he shared that letter with me. It was beautiful. And it reminds me of a time when in 2020, my father-in-law came to the house, and, COVID hysteria, left my father-in-law and mother-in-law outside on our rocking chairs, and they came to visit us, and I couldn't get the kids to come out and interact. They were just off in their own little world, and I had this little spidey sense that they need to go spend time with them because this could be the last time. And sure enough, it was the last time.
Yeah.
And I got to be, witness to my wife losing her dad. So talk about the grief after the pressure that comes with writing a eulogy and speaking in front of family and having to be strong and having to navigate that.
I don't think most people, they think that it's going to be horrible. And I'm not going to say it's great, but for me, my own experience, it was in some ways easier than I thought it would be. And I think it's mostly because I did the things that I needed to do before he passed. I made a point that I would go visit with him after he had that surgery, and we weren't sure that he was even going to make it, that I was going to go visit him every week. I would go out on Sunday and usually either bring lunch, or we would go into Gallatin and go eat lunch. And we watched all the football. He loved football. And we'd just be together. So I had done all the work I could possibly do to prepare for his passing. I knew it was going to happen. And I think that's the first step that everybody needs to take, is to understand that, the people you love are going to die. You could go first. If they go first, you're going to be lost if you didn't do that work.
Can you take me to the point in which you made that decision to spend every Sunday? Where did that navigate where you were like, okay, I'm committing to Sunday? Because that's a commitment.
Yeah, that's a great question. He and I didn't really see each other very often. We'd talk a lot on the phone, but I didn't make the effort to go out and see him. I kind of had this vision in my head that he was going to be fine, and that he would almost, I know it's not true, but he would live forever. He'll always be around because he's a tough guy. And, at the time he was 83 and he's fine. Right. And then when I saw that that surgery didn't go well and he was in the ICU for almost a month, got intubated multiple times, 6 surgeries, and survived that, I realized, it's time to make up for some of what I didn't invest in him and in the relationship. And I told Katie, my wife, said, I'm going to go out there on Sunday and I'm going to keep doing it. And every now and then she'd ask me, are you going to see your dad on Sunday? It was almost, don't take this the wrong way, Katie. It was almost like, are you going to go see your dad or are you going to spend time with me? And so that put pressure on all of us, I guess. I had to work to spend time with her too, and it's an hour round trip too. Or excuse me, 2 hours round trip, an hour to his house and an hour back, plus any time that I spent there. So it was an intentional investment of time that wasn't insubstantial. And I knew I had to do it. I knew that he wanted to see me and I wanted to see him. And by being present and being with him, that we would have conversations that we needed to have. And a lot of time is, about how bad the Titans are. we really learned how to get disappointed on a regular basis with the Titans. But that was just the vehicle for making it happen. Yeah. Because I knew he loved football and I knew he wasn't going to be anywhere else but at home. And it gave us the opportunity to be together and enjoy something that we both like. And there were conversations that I put off having. For example, one of my forum mates, Scott Scoville, and I, in March of 2020, right before COVID, I'd been bugging Scott for years that we need to write a song together. Scott has a company called Moo TV. If you've ever been to a Brad Paisley concert or Garth Brooks or Dierks Bentley, his video screens are in the background. He produces all the video. And Scott started singing a few years ago, and he said, "Man, I've been singing a little bit and taking some lessons, and think I want to be an artist." And he played the audio for me. My jaw dropped open. I'm like, "Oh my God, you can sing, dude. I know what good sounds like. I'm a musician myself, and that you have a tremendous voice." And so we decided to write a song together. And I've spent probably half the day listening to music and have played guitar and drums for decades, but I had never written a song. And so I didn't really know how to go about it. I've heard people talk about it. And he said, well, I know how to do this. So I've written a few with some other partners. So we're going to have breakfast. You show up. We're going to eat breakfast, and then we're going to go to my condo, and then we're going to write the song. I'll lead you through the process. I just need you to have an idea. And I knew exactly what that needed to be. You can listen to the song. It's called I Hold the Light. It's the only song called I Hold the Light. Scott Scoville is the artist. He's singing it. And the idea was most men, maybe even some women out there, have experienced this. When your dad tells you, go get the flashlight, we're going to work on your car, or we're going to fix something. There's usually some harsh language involved because you can never hold the light properly. And so I had that experience of doing that for my dad. He wasn't necessarily very patient back when I was a kid. And so that's what the song is about how he was really harsh to me, wasn't patient at all. But I also acknowledge in that song that I was kind of a little asshole. I was a teenager. I didn't want to be doing it. I wasn't paying any attention. I wasn't trying to hold the light properly. And there's a she mentioned in that song. And that's my daughter. And that now I hold the light. I determined that I was going to hold the light for her, and that I would try to treat her differently and help shine the light forward for her as she navigates her life. So we recorded the song. I didn't do it. Scott called me a year later and left me a voicemail. I'd already gone to bed, woke up the next morning. Hey, give me a call. We're about to go into the studio and record this song. And so I called Scott, and he said, yeah, man, I gotta meet with my band leader, Brent Mason, and talk to him about how this song should go, what it should sound like, what's the feeling here, and what do we want it to be? And my jaw dropped again. It's like, oh my God, Brent Mason. If you don't know, go look him up on YouTube. I think 11 times Nashville Guitarist of the Year. He's like, wow. If there was a Mount Rushmore of guitarists, he'd be up there on that, in Nashville especially. And so got to meet him, gave me the COVID fist bump, and told me, great song. I'm like, how hard is this music business stuff?
Yeah, it's a
write one song and
do it.
Brent Mason's telling you did a good job. So when the song got produced and was all ready and ready to go, I played it for my dad, but I didn't tell him what it was about. And I put that off until a few weeks before he passed. And I named my company after an experience with my dad, Element 47, when we'd go on vacation and we'd ask him the usual questions. How many more miles? How much longer? When are we going to get there? He would just say 47. It was the most brilliant way ever of telling you to shut up as a kid so that he could get back to driving and wave at truckers. And so I told him what that song was about, and he was really surprised. And I said, that was a moment in time where I got my feelings hurt holding the light for you while you were working on a car that I probably screwed up. I'm certain I did. And I've learned as an adult that when you have an experience like that with your child, you got 1,001 other things going on. To the kid, that adult, your parent, is a god, right? They're supposed to be perfect. They're supposed to know how to be a parent. They're supposed to know how to do everything. They don't. We're figuring it out as we go. And I didn't recognize that. And I held a lot of that for years, a lot of animosity about maybe how I got treated from time to time, not knowing he had his own stuff going on. And
well, it's something too, Eric, that I didn't realize until just here recently, that my dad's gone through different versions of him being a dad. Mm-hmm. Like the version of your dad that may have barked back at you. What the hell was going on in his life? Because you've also been the same way. You've been short and frustrated and lacking patience. And like you saw so much of you probably, and just in the reflection of that whole experience that like I didn't, while you're growing up, you're thinking dad is dad. Right. He's not dad insecure, dad Dad got to, make ends meet. Dad got to put food on the table. You're just like assuming. You're just like, oh, it's Dad. No, It's like many dads.
It's all about me.
Yes.
I'm the most important thing. Dad's here to serve me. Well, that's not reality.
Yeah. It is interesting too, because, you look back at Eric's life, and Eric's got different versions of Eric,
Yeah.
And the new version today is with the latest software, latest release, it's all that good, but you had a lot of errors on the way bugs that needed to be fixed. And
the August 27th, 2022 update was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was the day I decided to not drink anymore.
Yeah. That's a big software upgrade. And you still have to go through a lot more upgrades even from that. And the upgrade process never stops. We are just code that needs to improve because everything else changes, the life circumstances, the lessons we get. I think the most powerful lesson we get in this life is a death.
Mm-hmm.
Someone close.
Yeah.
Because it will shape you.
I had a real difficult time with death growing up because I was that kid playing and complaining. And when my grandfather died, I did not realize he was that close to death. And I saw him the day he died. I was actually mowing my grandparents' yard, and the mower just kept quitting. And he actually helped get it started so I could finish mowing the yard. And, I didn't thank him. I didn't consider that he was going to die that night. And, he was a godlike figure in my life. And I always felt a little guilty about not acknowledging that. And it was such a shock that, whenever anybody else died, and there were very few people close to me that died, but when other people I knew experienced death, man, I would go, I can't say anything to them about it. I can't deal with it. I would just pretend like it didn't happen and disappear. Well, maybe I didn't know. They'll think I didn't know.
Mm.
And I have had a few people in my life pass away since then, and began to realize, it's a part of life. And I began to understand that you should say something to those people. They're lost in grief at that moment, and they just want to know that people care.
Mm. Mm.
And I saw you. You came to visitation on Thursday night, you and Matt, and I really appreciated seeing you guys.
Mm.
Somebody asked me how all that was, and I said, honestly, at visitation, I had a pretty damn good time.
Mm.
Because
your closest friends.
all my friends showed up. I had, probably 6 or 7 buddies from high school that came to visit. And somebody asked me the other day, did those guys know your dad? No, they knew me. A couple of them did, but they were there to support me, and I am thankful.
We did know your dad through you.
Yeah,
indirectly.
Yeah, there's a lot of him in me. I get a lot of my humor from him. He was very, very funny, always cracking jokes. He was serious occasionally, but he loved to have a good time.
Mm. Well, I think as we go to close, I think anybody that's still listening is thinking about someone in their life that they need to write a letter to, or have a phone call with, or make a new decision for extra time you're going to have with them. And it's kind of interesting when you stop and thinking about when your kids go to school and they leave the house. You had 365 days almost with that person. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go to a very part-time, like you get them on vacation mode. And that's all.
You might have a few months.
Yeah. When you look at it as a whole, on the time that you're going to have with your parent is very little. And that doesn't even count the time that you go through that phase where you really don't like them very well. For whatever reason, whatever's going on, or some drama that happened in the family, or
the hormones coursing through your veins.
All that stuff. I think I'm glad we we did this episode. I'm glad you were able to stay strong. There
were a few tears, but I kind of have made it a little bit of a mission for myself to talk about it. We don't, as a society, we don't talk about it enough. And I'm very appreciative of those mentors that I've had that encouraged me to write those letters. I've got to write letters to my mom now, and that clock is still ticking. I told my mom and I said, I hope you don't mind that I'm going to show up at your house every Sunday now, and I've been doing it. And
good work.
It's time well spent.
Thanks, Eric. Listen, that's an example of what EO is all about, getting super deep. We call it the 5%. Growth is not just our business. It's our personal journey. As we navigate entrepreneurship, we are people going through people things. And yeah, this is one of those things that you go through. If you hear some of the words that were said about entrepreneurship, and you're looking for a home, eonashville.com, come visit, check us out. We have 350 entrepreneurs that run great companies in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. And we are the place so you can get deep and get real about life. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.